Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Halima from languagespot. Today we are going to practice English by listening to short stories. The Sixth Voyage of Sindbad the Sailor. I know, my friend, that you will wish to hear how, after having been shipwrecked 5 times and escaped so many dangers, I could resolve again to tempt fortune and expose myself to new hardships. I am myself astonished at my conduct when I reflect upon it. It must certainly have been actuated by my destiny, from which none can escape, be that as it may after a year's rest I prepare for sixth voyage, notwithstanding the entreaties of my kindred and friend, who did all in their power to dissuade me. Instead of taking my way by the Persian Gulf, I travelled once more through several provinces of Persia and the Indies, and arrived at a seaport. Here I embarked in a ship, the captain of which was bound on a long voyage in which he and the pilot lost the course. Suddenly we saw the captain quit his rudder, uttering loud lamentations. He threw off his turban, pulled his beard, and beat his head like a madman. We asked him the reason, and he answered that we were in the most dangerous place in all the ocean. A rapid current carries the ship along with it, and we shall all perish in less than a quarter of an hour. Pray to God to deliver us from the peril. We cannot escape if He do not take pity on us. At these words he ordered the sails to be lowered, but all the ropes broke, and the ship was carried by the current to the foot of an inaccessible mountain, where he shook and went to pieces, yet in such a manner that we saved our lives, our provision, and the best of our goods. The mountain at the foot of which we were was covered with wrecks, with a vast number of human bones, and with an incredible quantity of goods and fish of all kinds. These objects served only to augment our despair. In all other places it is usual for rivers to run from their channels into the sea. But here a river of fresh water runs from the sea into a dark cavern, whose entrance is very high and spacious. What is most remarkable in this place is that the stones of the mountain are of crystal, rubies, and other precious stones. Here is also a sort of fountain of pitch or bitumen that runs into the sea, which the fish swallow and evacuate soon afterward, turn it into ambergris, and this the waves throw up on the beach in great quantities. Trees also grow here, most of which are of food of lows, equal in goodness to those of Komari. To finish the description of this place, it is not possible for ships to get off when once they approach within a certain distance, if they be driven whither by a wind from the sea, the wind and the current impel them, and if they come into it when a land wind blows, which might seem to favor their getting out again. The height of the mountain stops the wind and occasional calm, so that the force of the current carries them ashore, and what completes the misfortune is that there is no possibility of ascending the mountain or of escaping by sea. We continued upon the shore at the foot of the mountain in a state of despair, and expected death every day. On our first landing we had divided our provision as equally as we could, and thus everyone lived a longer or a shorter time, according to his temperance and the use he made of his provision. I survived all my companions, and when I buried the last I had so little provision remaining that I thought I could not long survive, and I dug a grave, resolving to lie down in it because there was no one left to pay me the last offices of respect. But it pleased God once more to take compassion on me, but and put it and put it in my mind to go to the bank of the river which ran into the great cavern, considered its probable course with great attention. I said to myself, this river which runs thus underground must somewhere have an issue. If I make a raft I leave myself to the current, it will convey me to some inhabited country, or I shall perish if I be drowned. I lose nothing but only change one kind of debt for another. I immediately went to work up a large pieces of timber and cables, for I had a choice of them from direct, and I tied them together so strongly that I soon made a very solid raft. When I had finished I loaded it with some chests of rubies, emeralds, ambergris, rock crystal, and bells of rich stuff. Having balanced my cargo exactly and fastened it well to the raft, I went on board with 2 oars that I had made, and leaving it to the course of the river, resigned myself to the will of God. As soon as I entered the cavern I lost all light, and a stream carried me I knew not whither. Thus I floated on in perfect darkness, and once found the ark so low that it very nearly touched my head, which made me cautious afterward to avoid the like danger. All this while I ate nothing but what was just necessary to support nature, yet notwithstanding my frugality and all my provisions were spent. Then I became insensible. I cannot tell how long I continued so, but when I revived I was surprised to find myself on an extensive plain on the brink of a river, where my raft was tied amidst a great number of negroes. I got up as soon as I saw them and saluted them. They spoke to me, but I did not understand their language. I was so transported with joy that I knew not whether I was asleep or awake, but being persuaded that I was not asleep, I recited the following words in Arabic aloud: Call upon the Almighty, He will help thee. Thou needest not perplex thyself about anything else. Shut thy eyes, and while thou art asleep, God will change thy bad fortune into good. One of the negroes who understood Arabic, hearing me speak thus, came toward me and said, Brother, be not surprised to see us. We are inhabitants of this country, and were our field from this river, which comes out of the neighboring mountain. We saw your raft, and one of us swam into the river and brought it hither, where we fastened as you see, until you should awake. Pray tell us your history. Whence did you come? I begged of them first to give me something to eat, and then I would satisfy their curiosity. They gave me several sorts of food, and then I had satisfied my hunger. I related all that had befallen me, which they listened to with attentive surprise. As soon as I had finished, they told me by the person who spoke Arabic and interpreted to them what I said, that I must go along with them and tell my story to the king myself, it being too extraordinary to be related by any other than the person to whom the event had happened. They immediately sent for a horse, and having helped me to mount, some of them walked before to show the way, while the rest took my raft and cargo and followed. We marched till we came to the capital of Serendib, for it was on that island I had landed. The negroes presented me to their king. I approached his throne and saluted him as I used to do the kings of the Indies. That is to say, I prostrated myself at his feet. The prince ordered me to rise, received me with obliging air, and made me sit down near him. I concealed nothing from the king, but related to him all that I had told you. At last my raft was brought in, and the bells opened in his presence. He admired the quantity of food of olives and ambergris, but above all the rubies and emeralds, for he had none in his treasury that equalled them. Observing that he looked on my jewels with pleasure, and viewed the most remarkable among them, one after another, I fell prostrate at his feet, and took the liberty to say to him, Sir, not only my presence is at your Majesty's service, but the cargo and the raft, and I would beg of you to dispose of it as your own. He answered me with a smile, Sindbad, I will take nothing of yours. Far from lessening your wealth, I design to augment it, and will not let you quit my dominance without marks of my liberality. He then charged one of his officers to take care of me, and ordered people to serve me at his own expense. The officer was very faithful in the execution of his commission, and caused all the goods to be carried to the lodging provided for me. I went every day at a set hour to make my court to the king, and spend the rest of my time in viewing the city. And what was most worthy of notice, the capital of Serendip stands at the end of a fine valley in the middle of the island, encompassed by high mountain. There are seen 3 days' sails off at sea. Rubies and several sorts of mineral abound. All kinds of rare plants and trees grow there, especially cedars and coconuts. There is also a pear fishery in the mouth of its principal river, and in some of its valleys are found diamonds. I made by way of devotion a pilgrimage to the place where Adam was confined after his banishment from paradise, and had the curiosity to go to the top of the mountain. When I returned to the city, I prayed the king to allow me to return to my own country, and he granted me permission in the most obliging and honorable manner. He would force a rich prison upon me, and at the same time he charged me with the letter for the commander of the faithful, our sovereign, saying to me, I pray you give this present from me and this letter to the Caliph Harun al-Rashid, and assure him of my friendship. The letter from the king of Serendib was written on the skin of certain animal of great value, very scarce, and of yellowish color. The characters of this letter were of azure, and the content as follows. The king of the Andes, before whom march 100 elephants, who lives in a palace that shines with 100,000 rubies, and who has in his treasury 20,000 crowns enriched with diamonds, to Caliph Harun al-Rashid. Though the present we send you be inconsiderable, receive it, however, as a brother and a friend, in consideration of the hearty friendship which we bear for you, and of which we are willing to give you proof. We desire the same part in your friendship, considering that we believe it to be our merit, as we are both kings. We send you this letter as from one brother to another. Farewell. The present consisted of one single ruby made into a cup, about half a foot high, an inch thick, and filled with round pears of half a dram each, the skin of a serpent, whose scales were as bright as an ordinary piece of gold, and had the virtue to preserve from sickness those who lay upon it. 50,000 drams of the best wood of aloes, with 30 grains of camphor as big as pistachios, and a female slave of great beauty, whose robe was covered with jewels. The ship set sail, and after a very successful navigation we landed at Bussorah, and from thence I went to the city of Baghdad, where the first thing I did was to acquit myself of my commission. I took the king of Sindbad and went to present myself at the gate of Commander of the Faithful, and was immediately conducted to the throne of the Caliph. I made my obeisance and presented the letter and the gift. When he had read what the king of Sindbad brought to him, he asked me if that prince were really so rich and potent as he represented himself in his letter. I prostrated myself a second time, and rising again said, Commander of the Faithful, I can assure your Majesty he doth not exceed the truth. I bear him witness nothing is more worthy of admiration than the magnificence of his palace. When the prince appears in public, he has a throne fixed on the back of an elephant, and rides betwixt two ranks of his ministers, favorites, and other people of his court before him upon the same elephant. An officer carries a golden lace in his hand, and behind him there is another who stands with a rod of gold, on the top of which is an emerald half a foot long and an inch thick. He is attended by a guard of 1,000 men, clad in cloth of gold and silk, and mounted on elephant richly caparisoned. The officer who is before him on the same elephant cries from time to time with the Sultan of the Indies, the monarch greater than Solomon, and the powerful Maharaja. After he has pronounced those words, the officer behind the throne cries in his turn, This monarch, so great and so powerful, must die, must die, must die. And the officer before replies, Praise alone be to him who liveth forever and ever. The Caliph was much pleased with my account, and sent me home with a rich present. Here Sindbad commanded another 100 sequins to be paid to Hindbad, and begged his return on the morrow to hear his seventh and last voyage. The seventh and last voyage of Sindbad the Sailor. On my return home from my sixth voyage, I had entirely given up all thought of again going to sea, for besides that my age now requires rest, I was resolved no more to expose myself to such a risk as I had encountered, so that I thought of nothing but to pass the rest of my days in tranquillity. One day, however, an officer of the Caliph's inquired for me. The Caliph said he has sent me to tell you that he must speak with you. I followed the officer to the palace, where being presented to the Caliph, I saluted him. I prostrated myself at his feet. Sindbad, said he to me, I stand in need of your service. You must carry my answer in present to the king of Serendip. This command of the Caliph was to me like a clap of thunder. Commander of the Faithful, I replied, I am ready to do whatever your Majesty shall think fit to command, but I beseech you most humbly to consider what I have undergone. I have also made a vow never to leave Baghdad. Perceiving that the Caliph insisted upon my compliance, I submitted and told him that I was willing to obey. He was very well pleased, and ordered me 1,000 sequins for the expenses of my journey. I prepared of my departure in a few days. As soon as the Caliph's letter and present were delivered to me, I went to Bussorah, where I embarked and had a very prosperous voyage. Having arrived at the Isle of Serendib, I was conducted to the palace, where much pomp, when I prostrated myself on the ground before the king. Sindbad, said the king, you are welcome. I have many times thought of you. I bless the day on which I see you once more. I made my compliment to him, and thanked him for his kindness, and delivered the gifts from my august master. The Caliph's letter was as follows: Greeting, in the name of Sovereign Guide of the right way, from the servant of God Harun Rashid, whom God had set in the palace of vice-regent to his prophet after his ancestors of happy memory, to the potent of esteemed Raja of Serendip. We received your letter with joy, and said you this form our imperial residence, the garden of superior wit. We hope when you look upon it, you will perceive our good intention, and be pleased with this farewell. The Caliph's present was a complete suit of cloth of gold, valued at 1,000 sequins, 50 robes of rich stuff, 100 of white cloth, the finest of Cairo, Suez, and Alexandria, a vessel of agate, more broad than deep, an inch thick and half a foot wide, the bottom of which represents in bas relief a man with one knee on the ground, who held a bow and an arrow ready to discharge at a lion. He sent him also rich tablets, which, according to tradition, belonged to the great Solomon. The king of Surrender was highly gratified at the Caliph's acknowledgment of his friendship. Later time after this audience I solicited leave to depart, and with much difficulty obtained it. The king, when he dismissed me, made me a very considerable present. I embarked immediately to return to Baghdad, but had not the good fortune to arrive there so speedily as I had hoped. God ordered it otherwise. 3 or 4 days after my departure we were attacked by pirates who easily seized upon our ship because it was not a vessel of war. Some of the crew offered resistance, which cost them their lives, but for myself and the rest, who were not so imprudent, the pirates saved us and carried us into a remote island, where they sold us. I fell into the hands of a rich merchant, who, as soon as he bought me, took me to his house, treated me well, and clad me handsomely as a slave. Some days after, he asked me if I understood any trade. I answered that I was no mechanic, but a merchant, and that the pirates who sold me had robbed me of all I possessed. Tell me, replied he, can you shoot with a bow? I answered that the bow was one of my exercises in my youth. He gave me a bow and arrows, and taking me behind him on an elephant, carried me to a thick forest some leagues from the town. We penetrated a great way into the wood, and when he thought fit to stop, he bade me alight, then showing me a great tree, climb up that, said he, and shoot at the elephant as you see them pass by, for there is a prodigious number of them in this forest. But a merchant, and that the pirates who sold me had robbed me of all I possessed. Tell me, replied he, can you shoot with a bow? I answered that the bow was one of my exercises in my youth. He gave me a bow and arrows, and taking me behind him on an elephant, carried me to a thick forest some leagues from the town. We penetrated a great way into the wood, and when he thought fit to stop, he bade me alight, then showing me a great tree, climb up that, said he, and shoot at the elephant as you see them pass by, for there is a prodigious number of them in this forest, and if any of them fall, come and give me notice. Having spoken thus, he left me victuals and returned to the town, and I continued upon the tree all night. I saw no elephant during the night, but next morning at break of day I perceived a great number. I shot several arrows among them, and at last one of the elephants fell, when the rest retired immediately and left me at liberty to go and acquaint my patron with my success. When I had informed him, he commended my dexterity and cursed me highly. We went afterward together to the forest, where we dug a hole for the elephant. My patron designed to return when it was rotten and take his teeth to trade with. I continued this employment for 2 months. One morning, as I looked for the elephant, I perceived with extreme amazement that, instead of passing by me across the forest as usual, they stopped and came to me with a horrible noise, and in such numbers that the plain was covered and shook under them. They surrounded the tree in which I was concealed, and their trunk uplifted, and all fixed their eyes upon me. At this alarming spectacle I continued immovable, and was so much terrified that my bow and arrows fell out of my hand. My fears were not without cause, for after the elephant had stared upon me some time, one of the largest of them put his trunk round the foot of the tree, plucked it up, and threw it on the ground. I fell with the tree, and the elephant, taking me up with his trunk, laid me on his back, where I sat more like one dead than alive. With my quiver off my shoulder, he put himself at the head of the rest, who followed him in line one after the other, carried me a considerable way, then laid me down on the ground, and retired with all his companions. After having lain some time and seeing the elephant gone, I got up and found I was upon a long and broad hill, almost covered with the bones and teeth of elephant. I doubt not but that this was the burial place of the elephant, and that they carried me thither on purpose to tell me that I should forbear to kill them, as now I knew where to get their teeth without inflicting injury of them. Not stay on the hill, but turned toward the city, and after having traveled the day and the night, I came to my patron. As soon as my patron saw me, "Oh, poor Sindbad!" exclaimed he, "I was in great trouble to know what was become of you. I have been to the forest, where I found a tree newly pulled up, a new bow and arrows on the ground, and I despair of ever seeing you more. Pray tell me what befell you." I satisfied his curiosity, and we both of us set off I satisfied his curiosity, and we both of us set out next morning to the hill. We loaded the elephant, which had carried us, with as many teeth as he could bear, and when we were returned, my master thus addressed me: "Hear now what I shall tell you. The elephants of our forests have every year killed us a great many slaves, whom we sent to seek ivory. For all the cautions we could give them, these crafty animals destroyed them one time or other. God has delivered you from their fury, and has bestowed that favor upon you only. It is a sign that he loves you, and has some use for your service in the work. You have procured me incredible wealth, and now our whole city is enriched by your means. Without any more exposing the lives of our slaves, after such a discovery, I can treat you no more as a slave, but as a brother. God bless you with all happiness and prosperity. I henceforth give you your liberty. I will also give you riches." To this I replied, "Master, God preserve you. I desire no other reward for the service I had the good fortune to do to you and your city, but leave to return to my own country." "Very well," said he. "The monsoon will in a little time bring ships for ivory. I will then send you home." I stayed with him while waiting for the monsoon, and during that time we made so many journeys to the hill that we felt all our warehouses with ivory. The other merchants who traded in it did the same, for my master made them partakers of his good fortune. The ships arrived at last, and my master himself, having made choice of the ship wherein I was to embark, loaded half of it with ivory on my account, laid in a provision in abundance for my passage, and besides obliged me to accept a present of some curiosities of the country of great value. After I had returned him 1,000 thanks for all his favor, I went abroad. We stopped at some island to take in fresh provisions. Our vessel being came to the port on the mainland in the Andes. We touched there, and not being willing to venture by sea to Bussorah, I landed my portion of the ivory, resolving to proceed on my journey by land. I realized vast sums by my ivory, brought several rarities which I intended for present, and when my equipage was ready, set out in company with a large caravan of merchants. I was a long time with the journey and suffered much, but was happy in thinking that I had nothing to fear from the seas, from pirates, from serpents, and from the other perils to which I had been exposed. I at last arrived safe at Baghdad, and immediately waited upon the Caliph to give him my account of my embassy. He loaded me with honor and rich presents, and I have ever since devoted myself to my family, kindred, and friends. Sindbad here finished the relation of his seventh and last voyage, and then addressing himself to Hindbad, "Well, friend," said he, "did you ever hear of any person that suffered so much as I have done? Is it not reasonable that after all this I should enjoy a quiet and pleasant life?" As he said these words, Hindbad kissed his hand and said, "Sir, my afflictions are not to be compared with yours. You not only deserve a quiet life, but are worthy of all the riches you possess, since you make so good a use of them. May you live happily for a long time." Sindbad ordered him to be paid another 100 sequins, and told him to give up carrying burden as a porter, and to eat henceforth at his table, for the wishes that he should all his life have reason to remember that he henceforth has a friend in Sindbad the Sailor. With this fruitful last voyage, I have to thank you for being with me and wait for another short story. Bye bye.